France 24 debate turns to Tunisia, the birthplace of the Arab Spring, with some grim news this Wednesday. The head of the secular left gunned down as he left his home by masked men on a motorbike. Chokri Belaid had started to emerge as the figurehead of opposition to the ruling Islamist Ennahda party. He was outspoken in denouncing political Islam and the increasingly violent atmosphere that was taking place on Ennahda's watch. In scenes reminiscent of 2 years ago, Belaid's death prompting schools and offices to shut and protesters to pour onto Tunis's Bourguiba Avenue, demanding the dissolution of what the government calls committees in defense of the revolution, what the opposition, by the way, labels pro-Ennahda militias. Fate of the calendar had it that Tunisia's president was in Strasbourg this Wednesday for a speech at the European Parliament, where he denounced counter-revolutionaries, a vague term that's often been bandied about in Egypt, and which is also in the throes of a painful transition. 2 years after the overthrow of longtime strongman Zine Abidine Ben Ali, where does Belaid's death leave Tunisia's transition to democracy? Today, in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the outrage in Tunisia. We'll be expecting to be joined shortly by Member of Parliament for the ruling Ennahda party, Amel AZZOUZ. With us here in the studio, Wafa JAOUA of the opposition Aljoumhouri party. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Also with us, activist Jalila HEDHLI-PEUGNET of the Think Ahead for Tunisia think tank. Thank you for being with us. And we'll be joined from Strasbourg at the European Parliament by Dutch Euro MP Marietje, the France 24 debate, where you can always join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. Let's start in Tunis and join correspondent Mischa Benoit-LAVELLE. Mischa, night is beginning to fall in Tunisia. What's the situation right now?
Well, protests here around the capital have been broken up, but not after, but only once security forces had recourse to tear gas, not just on Habib Bourguiba Avenue, the central avenue, but all around actually the downtown area, including areas that really had large protests like this, maybe since the revolution or since some of the larger protests after the revolution, the sit-ins that we've seen since then. There were major metro stations that were just filled with tear gas right now and empty of people. So right now in the capital, things are calm, but we've also seen throughout Tunisia in the interior regions in cities such as Sfax and Kaf and Sidi Bouzid. There were also protests that were also broken up by tear gas. There were some headquarters of the Ennahda party that protesters tried to set fire to or to break into. So the situation is not calm by any means.
Stay with us for a second, Mischa, because I'd like us to hear from Belaid. He had received death threats on his website. He reiterated those threats no later than yesterday evening during a TV debate where he lashed out at what he labeled government-sponsored violence.
I said that there's a real crisis in the country. There is frustration, a serious failure in ensuring security, a certain helplessness and social tension.
Now, Mischa Benoit-LAVELLE, he said he'd been threatened. We'd seen those threats. Nonetheless, how much of a shock is this?
Oh, it's a complete shock. I mean, it's something that Tunisians really have not seen at any point in their recent history, a cold-blooded political killing in the middle of the day with a weapon. The only real precedent is a few months ago, the regional opposition leader, Lotfi Negev, was killed at the hands of a mob, but that came during the context of a violent protest. Some videos showed that actually the opposition party members were also engaging in that violence, so it was more of a chaotic violent protest situation. This, where it was what seems to be a planned political assassination is something that's really shocked the Tunisian people, and I think that's what we've seen in these spontaneous protests today. You know, there was a lot of people crying. It wasn't just rage that we saw on the streets. It was a lot of just trauma that you saw in the eyes of people of all sorts of political stripes, really, not just the more leftist, wealthy, secular elite, but you saw all types of people, and also you saw that it was taking place all throughout the country. Both in wealthier coastal towns like Tunis and Sousse, but also in impoverished interior areas like Sfax, like Sidi Bouzid and Kef. So it's really an almost united outcry after this event. It's something that's really traumatized the Tunisian people.
And just very briefly, one final question for you, Mischa. We've seen that 4 of the opposition political parties say they're pulling out of the Constituent Assembly. Just for our viewers who don't really know Tunisia well, where does that leave the process to getting a new constitution and having elections? Where does that leave it right now?
Well, they've said that they're suspending their activity. And I think it would depend on exactly how many the opposition members end up following that suspension. If it was enough, then they would not meet the quorum to continue work at the Constituent Assembly, and that would mean that the activity of that body is suspended. But really, we're going to have to see once it's time for the Constituent Assembly to take office exactly how many have decided to follow that, and also how long they decide to maintain that suspension of activity.
Mischa Benoit-LAVELLE, thanks for that live update from Tunis. I just want to, before we go on, Jalila, HEDHLI-PEUGNET, you heard Mischa mentioning people during the demonstrations breaking down in tears. You were on a debate show with Belaid. What's your memory of him?
If I can resume, his character is he's a very brave person. He says what he thinks. He's a truthful person, and he defended the citizenship and the freedom till the end. And if there's a lesson that we can learn from him is his braveness. Maybe I'll take that from him. His braveness to say no, to point out the problems and the real perpetrators of the problems in Tunisia. And he dared to say that loudly. And that's my memories of him. I had a debate, and I was impressed by his frankness. Yes.
It leaves a void in the opposition. Wafa, JAOUA. What does that mean now for the opposition? The fact that he was killed. What's going to happen? What's going on right now?
As an opposition party, we are very sad, and as democratic opposition, and after a meeting with all Nida Tunis, Jabha, Masar, Aljoumhouri, we ask for National Mourning Day, national burial of Martyr Shukri Belaid, call to general strike as protest against this criminal act, freeze of the participation on the National Assembly. We ask for the government resignation because of this fail to manage democratic transition and to keep the hope created by the Tunisian revolution, forming a national union government to save the peace of Tunisia and lead us to it to the democratic transition. Okay,
so call for a general strike, day of national mourning, the resignation of the government. We'll get back to those points. Fate has it, Marietje, SCHAAKE, that while the news was coming in, you were getting ready to listen to Tunisia's president, who was addressing the European Parliament. Did he seem caught out by what happened? What did you think of his reaction?
Well, first of all, let me again here also express our condolences, my condolences to the families and the loved ones of Mr. Belaid, and also actually to the country of Tunisia and all Tunisians that care about democracy, freedom, and the rule of law. I mean, I think that this assassination is a shock to all of us. And so when the president came to the European Parliament, it gave us an opportunity to express our concern and our support to him with a minute of silence. And so that was really an expression of support on behalf of the European people to the Tunisian people. And the president, in his words, was humble. But he was also realistic. He addressed the challenges that the country faces, but he also clearly expressed his faith in democracy and his persistence not to get derailed and to go on with the important reforms of the country. And I think that that is a commitment that we in Europe share. We're committed to seeing Tunisia develop into a rule of law, a well-governed and a democratic society.
And how did you interpret it when he blamed the killing on what he called counter-revolutionaries? It just seems like such a vague term.
Well, what I think is important now is that there's an independent investigation into how this could have happened. I mean, Mr. Belaid himself expressed that he felt threatened. Was there a lack of security? Was security lax, as he said himself, before he was assassinated? I think it is essential that there is a credible, independent inquiry that could go into the responsibilities of all layers of government to see, you know, whether there was a failure and what exactly happened here.
All right. On this point, the leader of Enhada, Rachid Hanouchi, spoke earlier to France 24. He too spoke of counter-revolutionaries, unequivocal in denouncing the assassination.
We are confronted with a political crime which merits nothing less than total condemnation. This is a crime that threatens not an individual, not a party or a movement within a party, but the entire nation, its stability and the democratic transition. A crime that threatens all plans for development in this country. If you want to search for who deserves the blame for this crime, look for who stands to benefit from it. Is it the government, a party or a movement that's running the country that can contribute to its destabilization, which in turn will affect tourism, investment, stability? The criminal, the real beneficiary or beneficiaries are the counter-revolutionaries, those against the nation. It's those who are hostile to Enhada, to the coalition government. It's those who don't want the country to develop or to go towards democratic elections.
Jalila Peugnet, what's your reaction there when you heard the words of the president of that Islamist party?
The president of the Islamist party and Mr. Merzoukhi also. Double speech, and double speech. We're suffocated from that. I mean, at the same time, they are covering the deeds of the leagues of the protection of the revolution or the protection of Enhada.
But he was quite eloquent there in saying how it doesn't serve the interests of Enhada to have this political assassination.
Oh my God, that's a good cover to make us forget about the government reshuffling for the moment, which is on the table a month now. That will make us a bit forget about our economic misery, our socio-economic misery now. So that's at the contrary, it serves the government. It serves it, and I don't know how he says it doesn't serve the government, because who can profit? Who has the means to kill, to assassinate Chokri Belaid? Normally, Chokri Belaid was not assassinated under the dictatorship of Ben Ali. Now he is assassinated under the democracy of Enhada. Okay, so at least if they didn't kill him, they didn't protect him. They didn't offer a country and a government that can protect the citizens to express their views, to express their opposition, their opposite views. So who has the interest from that? Since now it's at least since 48 hours or 24 hours, Chokri Belaid was saying that Enhada was behind through the leagues of the protection of the revolution. Okay, he said that, and if he was alive now, he will say that, and that's a fact. It's not the first. It's not the first time. This is not the first time. It happened many times, and the government is turning a deaf ears on the events that happened in October for Lotfi Nagh, the other person from Nida Tunis, now for him, and they don't do anything. If anything, so if they don't do anything, what does that mean? What does that mean? That's the only thing that demonstrates that they are.
What's your reaction when you hear Mariette's call for an independent inquiry?
I wish, an international independent. I only agree if there's something, a UN or a UN inquiry or an independent organ inquiry, yes. But at the moment in Tunisia, we don't have any confidence in the justice, in the interior, in the external affairs. We lost faith in everything, in the whole system at all. I mean, it's really both a rogue state, which is using militias and mercenaries to kill the opposition, to torture us, to make us, to install a new dictatorship, and at the same time, it's a fragile state who cannot protect its citizens. With the economic, we don't speak about the socio-economic problem, but at least the security of its people. People are afraid, people are suffocated, people are sick now, or they are sick. It's an outcry, really. We are sick.
Marietje, SCHAAKE, speaking recently to France 24, Tunisia's president, Monsef Marzouki, was asked about these committees of the revolution, and he condoned them, saying they were there to defend the revolution. When you hear Jalila HEDHLI-PEUGNET describe it as a rogue state, and that she says that the only independent inquiry can be an international one, what's your reaction?
Well, the actual security of people is essential, especially in a transition. And I think that the fact that Mr. Belaid has not been protected is a very serious concern to all of us. And so I believe it is essential that there is security for everyone, that there is room for different voices in Tunisia, and that there is also an assessment of, hate speech and inciting violence, because that is not contributing to stability and to a viable transition where people can trust each other, where there is pluralism, and where people can trust the institutions. And so I think it is important that this trust is restored not by words but by deeds. And the European Union has expressed and shown in support its commitment to this transition process. And should there be additional need after the horrible assassination of this morning, I'm sure that the EU would be more than willing to, because we would like Tunisia to be prosperous, to have opportunities for the young and bright generation, to have a rule of law in the country. And through numerous meetings and engagements, we have tried to foster investments and economic ties. But of course, stability is important for that, also in building trust among investors that economic development in Tunisia is going to go in the right direction. So in that sense, security and opportunities are very much tied. And I believe that the government of Tunisia has to show in deeds and not just in words that it is very, very serious in unraveling what has happened here, in taking responsibility and in preventing both hate speech inciting to violence and actual violent deeds, especially political assassinations.
Wafa JAOUA, just before we go to the break here, on the one hand, the opposition pulling out for now, or hitting the pause button, we should say, on the Constituent Assembly. When we describe the situation of bordering on lawlessness in some instances, is that the right thing to be doing, to be withdrawing, pulling out of institutions?
We are now in a point of not return, in face of an impasse. Since more than 1 year, we have heard a lot of alarming signals showing an increasing level of political violence, starting with the University of Manouba and violence against academicians and students. When security
I'm going to cut you off because we're going to have to go to the break, but it is, in your view, the right thing to do at this point. Stay with us. We're going to be back with the France 24 debate.